Good day. My name is Tayzon, and this is my synthesis video. Over the past term, I have had the privilege of engaging deeply with diverse literary texts, historical critiques, and cultural theories. This journey spanned three intensive modules: Module 1, National and the Global; Module 2, Colonial Past and Post-Colonial Present; and Module 3, Body, Mind, and Desire. Each module challenged my preconception and enriched my perspective on how literature reflects and shapes society. Today, I will share a comprehensive synthesis of these learnings, detailed specific texts, classroom activities, and reflective exercises that have transformed my understanding of the global narratives, historical biases, and the intricate connections between our physical and emotional selves. Now for Module 1. In this module, our focus was on understanding how literature both reflects and shapes national identity while simultaneously engaging with global themes. I learned that, first, literature is a mirror of collective experience. Specifically in Taximan's story by Catherine Lim, the narrative unfolds as more than a personal journey. It encapsulated themes of economic struggle, urban alienation, and the fragmentation of national identity and personal biases reflected by the taximan. Lim's portrayal of a taxi driver's everyday encounters forces us to confront how personal stories interweave with larger societal issues, biases, preconceptions, and cultural intervention. For example, the recurring imagery of crowded city streets and fleeting encounters underscores the idea that individual lives are part of a broader, more interconnected narrative. Similarly, in Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, she uses a seemingly benign ritual to expose the dangers of conformity and the latent violence within society. The story's chilling twist, the communal willingness to sacrifice one of their own, provokes a critical examination of how traditions, when left unquestioned, can become mechanisms of oppression. This specific story I've seen multiple times, but under the lens of GELITWO, I've understood it better. It was shocking how they were all participative of this ritual of stoning a person through the guise of a lottery. But when they are the ones in the position of loss, they suddenly oppose to it. However, their loved ones, who are supposed to protect them, are still willing to participate in the lottery. Secondly, the role of translation in global narratives and understanding the hero's journey. The module emphasized that translation is not merely linguistic, but a cultural process that transmits values and experiences. Now, in studying the hero's journey, I learned that the narrative framework appears across diverse cultures, underscoring our shared human experiences. Whether it's the transformation of a hero in a local folktale or a creative use of hero's journey, no, the creative understanding of hero's journey in a commercial or a modern reimagining in global cinema, that the journey motif reminds us that our struggles, growth, and eventual transcendence are universal. Additionally, David Damrock's analysis in world literature reinforced the idea that literature's strength lies in its ability to adapt, translate, and ultimately connect disparate cultures through shared archetypes. For Module 1, fiction is a catalyst for social change. I came to understand that fiction is an active participant in societal transformation. Literature not only mirrors societal issues, but also challenges them. By dissecting narratives like the Taximan's story and the lottery, I learned that fictional accounts can galvanize public sentiment and inspire social action. For instance, the critical reception of Jackson's work, The Lottery, has sparked debates about traditional versus progress, encouraging readers to critically evaluate their own cultural practices. Moreover, the module's discussion on the role of literary criticism and the support for local authors underscored that the act of reading is inherently political. It's about choosing which voices are amplified and recognizing that literature can either reinforce the status quo or disrupt it. And for Module 2, Colonial Past and Post-Colonial Present. This module provided an incisive look at the lasting impacts of colonialism on national identities and the formation of counter-narratives. I developed a deeper understanding through, first, understanding the single story and its implications. Chimamanda Adichie's seminal talk, The Dangers of a Single Story, was a catalyst for my critical thinking. Adichie explains the single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. This idea forced me to reflect on how dominant narratives often omit the richness of culture and multiple realities. In contrast, telephone conversation employs humor and irony to reveal the absurdity of racial prejudice. His conversation, laden with double meaning and subtle sarcasm, demonstrates that language itself can be a battleground where power is both asserted and subverted. And secondly, understanding bias and narrative manipulation. Our lectures and readings and videos on post-colonial literary theory made it clear that biases are constructed. Through rigorous analysis of texts, I learned how colonial narratives were deliberately curated to maintain control over colonized societies. For instance, the portrayal of the other in colonial travelogues and literature is a product of strategic narrative manipulation designed to justify imperial dominance. Now, engaging in class activities about these issues, I realized that critically analyzing such biases is essential. I now approach each text with the question, who is telling me this story and whose voice is missing? This mindset has sharpened my analytical skills and made me more mindful of the sources of information I encounter. And lastly, for Module 2, reclaiming identity through diverse narratives. Perhaps the most profound insight from this module was the concept of counter-narratives. By reading works produced by colonized authors, texts that challenge and complicate the colonial legacy, I learned that identity is not static, but an evolving tapestry woven from multiple voices. The module's discussions provided me with theoretical tools to understand how marginalized groups reclaim their histories, and this process of narrative reclamation is not only academic but also deeply personal. It has inspired me to explore and honor the multiple facets of my own identity and others. For the last module, Module 3, Body, Mind, and Desire. This module took more of an introspective turn by exploring the interrelation between physicality, mental health, and desire. The detailed study of text and media here led me to the following revelations. First, the imperative of mental and emotional transparency. In Dear Evan Hansen, it is not just a story about a troubled teenager. It is a commentary on the profound effects of isolation, anxiety, and the digital age on mental health. The narrative's raw portrayal of emotional distress and the struggles for authentic connection resonated deeply with me, highlighting that mental health is a crucial and physical well-being. Through class discussions and reflective writing, I learned that acknowledging vulnerability is a courageous step forward healing. The play reinforced that our emotional experiences are valid and that open dialogue about mental health can break down stigmas and foster supportive communities. And my second insight is empowering voices through the reclamation of the body. The Vagina monologues offered a bold exploration of female identity and the reclamation of the body. It's an unapologetic language and powerful imagery compelled me to confront societal norms that often objectify or silence women's experiences. For example, the monologues challenge the notion that a woman's worth is defined solely by her physical appearance. Instead of asserting that her body is a site of empowerment resilience, and creativity. This text prompted me to reflect on the broader implications of body politics, how our physical selves are not merely vessels, but integral components of our identity, capable of expressing resistance and individuality. And lastly, the interplay between physical expression and our inner experience. I also explored subtle narratives such as Chekhov's enigmatic nature and Hills Like White Elephants. These works use sparse dialogue and carefully crafted imagery to capture the nuances of desire and the complexity of human relationships. By analyzing these texts, I learned that physical expression, whether through a gesture, a pause, or a description, can communicate the deepest layers of emotion and meaning. This module taught me to appreciate the body as a dynamic form of language. Every descriptive detail in literature, from the curve of the crescent moon in Jackson's narrative to the understated elegance of Chekhov's prose, is a deliberate choice that reflects the interplay of inner desire and external expression. Now for my takeaways. In addition to these core modules, our course integrated lessons, hands-on activities, and sandboxes, and supplemental materials that further enriched my understanding. First, the sandbox activities were a practical application of these theoretical concepts. For instance, when we recreated the hero's journey using creative exercises, I had to analyze and internalize each narrative that was given in the videos and in class. From the call to adventure to the return, this exercise solidified my grasp of narrative structure and its relevance to personal transformation. Although this was a bit difficult and needed a bunch of polishing, over time I appreciated the story structure more because of these activities. And next, the mystery box game, which was another innovative exercise in my opinion. It challenged me to recall and apply key concepts from readings such as the dynamics of post-colonial biases and the subtleties of narrative manipulation. This competitive yet collaborative activity not only reinforced my retention, but also deepened my appreciation for the complexity of the material. I noticed that despite being shocked by the game, I was able to retain a lot of information due to the nature of the class lessons, the readings, and the sandboxes. And watching the film Bird, which was my additional optional film for additional points, provided a striking example of how visual media can complement literary narratives. The film's exploration of identity, freedom, and the search for meaning paralleled many themes from our readings, thereby expanding my understanding of how storytelling operates across different media. Initially, while watching The Bird, I was a bit confused, but I realized I would be more confused watching Bird if I hadn't gone through GELITWO. I noticed that I started analyzing the structure of the film, understanding the the very subtle nuances that made me understand the film better, because I watched the film with my mom and she was very confused throughout the film, but while I was taking notes, I noticed that my understanding of the film was way more critical than someone who hadn't taken the class. So explaining the film to her from my perspective and understanding after our modules and lessons in GELITWO made me realize that there is a real-life application to this class. I also engaged with additional academic articles and online lectures that connected our module's topics to broader discussions in global literature and post-colonial studies. These resources enriched my perspective by situating our course content within current scholarly debates and real-world contexts. For this, I really appreciated our lesson on our single story. It made me realize that the lecture was very, very foretelling of how our current society is post-colonial through our colonial mentality as Filipinos, our cultural biases and prejudices, and how that's really embedded in even educated people. So, next would be reflective practice as a cornerstone for personal growth. The structured relative exercises we completed, such as um, our weekly asynchronous classes for readings and group discussions and sandboxes, were definitely invaluable. They compelled me to articulate my evolving thoughts on topics like narrative bias and the empowerment of marginalized voices, linking academic insights with my personal experience. This reflective practice instilled in me a commitment to lifelong learning. I definitely now understand that critical reflection is essential not only for academic success, but also for continuous personal development and social engagement. Because throughout this entire class, I realized that I had to call myself out on a lot of my personal biases, and it really led me to understand why we are the way we are today and how literature definitely impacts society. And now for my personal synthesis and my understanding of how this will impact me in the long term. The cumulative insights from these modules have fundamentally reshaped my worldview in several profound ways. First is advanced critical thinking and media literacy. I now approach every narrative, be it a literary text, a historical account, or a social media post, with rigorous critical framework. I question the sources of these information, identifying underlying biases, and actively seeking out multiple perspectives. This analytical skill set is crucial in today's complex information landscape and will undoubtedly benefit me in future academic and professional or daily pursuits. The second is my deepened empathy and cultural sensitivity. The course has taught me to appreciate the complexity and richness of diverse cultural narratives. I have learned that understanding culture requires listening to all its voices, especially those marginalized by dominant discourses. This heightened cultural sensitivity has not only enriched my academic work, but has also made me a more empathetic and socially responsible individual. And empowerment through narrative reclamation. The idea that reclaiming one's story is an act of resistance has had a transformative effect on me, especially as a Filipino. I now see storytelling as a powerful medium for personal empowerment and social change. Whether through writing, public speaking, or creative expression, I am inspired to share my narrative and contribute to a broader dialogue that challenges oppressive structures. And definitely the commitment to lifelong reflection. The reflective exercises and discussions have underscored the importance of continuous self-examination. I am now committed to maintaining a reflective journal after, especially after the single story. I now engage in thoughtful dialogues and constantly question my presumptions. These practices will help me remain adaptable and open to ideas throughout my life. Now, to conclude, this term has been nothing short of transformative. The modules on national and the global, colonial past and post-colonial present, and body, mind, and desire have collectively deepened my understanding of how literature acts as a mirror, a critic, and a catalyst for social change. I have learned to dissect and challenge dominant narratives, to appreciate the interplay between language, culture, and identity, and to recognize the profound impact that storytelling has on both the individual and collective growth. These lessons extend far beyond the confines of this course. They have equipped me with the tools to navigate an increasingly complex world, enhancing my critical thinking, broadening my empathy, and empowering me to contribute meaningfully to discussions about culture, history, and identity. As I move forward, I will carry these insights into every facet of my life, using them to foster a more inclusive, reflective, and engaged society. Now, with that, thank you once again for your time. Once again, I am Sophia Tayzon, and this has been my synthesis.